Welcome back to Hartford, Connecticut, where the sun is beginning to set, but there's still a few hours of daylight left. Enough time to squeeze in just 2 more rounds here at YCS Hartford. What was once 1,247 players has now been whittled down to just 4. And we've got 4 different deck types in the top 4 as well. Quite an interesting set of decks. You've got the standard decks that everybody was expecting, branded Despia and Swordsoul 10. And then on the other side, we've got that interesting Sky Striker deck we saw last round, as well as Drytron, which kind of surpassed all of the other similar decks to make it here to the top 4 again today.
Yep, so we do have Justin versus Poe on the top end here. That is the Drytron versus the Sky Striker. So the odd ones out versus each other, eliminating one going into the finals. And we have James versus Andrew. So we have 2 Americans, an Australian and a Canadian, fighting it out for a chance to be champion.
Many people might have suspected that branded Despia and Swordsoul 10 would be the final matchup, but in fact it is the semi-final matchup, and that's the one we're going to see right now.
Yeah, we talked about these decks a lot this tournament. We talked about how all the other decks were just combating and just almost strictly building to have a good matchup against those decks. But we've barely been able to cover just how much the bread and butter of the format it is to see these 2 decks. And we'll be watching them right now as the game starts to get underway.
All right, here we go. First up, we've got James from Toronto. His favorite card is Morphing Jar. That's a fun one, injecting a bunch of new cards into the game when it flips. And facing off against him will be Andrew from Detroit, Michigan. His favorite card, still Orcust Heart Horror, still forbidden.
Yeah, you can tell one player's been around for a lot longer, maybe. If your favorite card's Morphing Jar, you probably have seen some things if you've been flipping Morphing Jar back in the day.
Yep. Whether it's just to refresh your hand or you're doing something a little more sinister, along with Cyber Jar and other similar cards, it is one of those classic ones. Interestingly enough, also used in the same duel as Change of Heart in the original series. Both cards used by Bakura.
That's a little bit of trivia I never would have known.
All right, they are shuffling up. And I don't know, have we seen this matchup in a feature match? I swear we had to have it at least once.
I assume we have, because it'd be kind of crazy if we did. This has been the matchup that's been happening throughout the tournament the entire time. These are the top 2 titans of the format, the ones that everyone was here to beat, everyone built for them, and it's about time we get to see, if not previously, how powerful both these decks are and why everyone else came out trying to destroy them.
It's been a while. If we have, it's been a while. So a fitting place for them to come to a head here. Yep, neither of them can guarantee a victory in the tournament by winning this match, but whichever one comes out on top will at least have bragging rights over the other.
Yeah, at least for sure one finals representation from the top 2 decks of the format. At least up until this point, we might have a new best deck of the format right after this YCS is over. But until then, it's up to them to decide who is strongest right here in top 4.
Everyone is shuffling up. Got to keep that paper record. We talk about things you got to do at tournaments, policy things that you got to know all the time. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this yesterday, but it's worth mentioning again today as well. You have to keep those life points written down. Have to.
Yeah, the best way to avoid any mishaps or any miscommunications, just have it all written down. You can track what changes have been made, around what time the game that's been. You can take notes as to what did damage and when. It's really easy to just have all that information available. So if there is ever any confusion, you can just go and look at the resource and just fix it before it becomes a problem later.
It's more than just a good idea. It's in the rules.
Well, there's a reason for it, right?
Yep. All right. Andrew's going to be starting us off.
So, we talk about how important the dice roll is in these matches, but I think it's particularly interesting going into game 1 of this tournament here, where, especially in game 1, where there's pre-side, you don't have any particular power suppressive traps anymore. Both these engines are really strong playing into each other, and almost to the point where you don't actually want to go first. And looking at that, that is the worst thing you want to do going first, is just pass. So now James gets the lead with the branded opening, discarding a copy of Despian Tragedy that's going to be able to trigger because it's not discarded as cost, it's discarded for the effect. Having a battle phase here into literally nothing. It's a very strong start for James, potentially.
It is. It's a tough one. I wonder what Andrew's got, that his opening play was to choose to go first and then pass.
I can only assume it's not any engine. Because almost all of the Swordsoul engine cards, or like the 10 cards, they put something on the field. I have to assume there are points of interaction in that hand right there that's not going to allow James to do whatever he wants.
So we know that he uses Ash Blossom, rather Effect Failure, and DD Crow, rather. We saw both of those in his previous feature match. Effect Failure obviously doesn't work here because you activate the opening during the draw phase. I guess if you have Ash, you're waiting for the branded fusion.
Absolutely, and I think Ash is going to be the big one, right? If you don't have a copy of Ash, then the amount of resources that James will be able to accumulate just by resolving a branded fusion might be too much to overcome. However, if you do happen to have all three of them, which if you're going to pass turn one, that's very likely. So if you don't have the Ash, you can at least have the Effect Failure for the Lebellion, and usually that's met with something along the lines of Brandon Red, which you can just chain the DD Crow to make sure none of that actually happens.
No Ash Blossom here, so branded fusion at least is going to resolve.
Right, so not ideal so far. Another thing we saw here, because we already see Tragedy in the graveyard, add a little bit of it in the hand, you might actually go for Albion instead and send a copy of Fairy Tale Snow. It looks like the snow from the hand.
And
So not ideal for either, but when you start with opening Tragedy, I suppose you can't really complain too much. The only thing that really made it better is to have a copy of Patchwork.
well, who says he doesn't?
I suppose. I mean, I personally would have used it a little bit earlier, I think, but maybe not. Oh, Infinite Permanence, essentially the same thing as Effect Failure here. Alright, this is where Brandon Red comes in most. Unfortunately, not going to be able to really have the same gold. Super Polymerization.
Falling.
That is all Andrew needs to see. That is the one that you can't interact with, and that is the one that's going to make Albion resolve as much as possible. Like, that's actually the perfect answer.
It really is. That's brutal. Oh, man. All right. That's not how you want to start out your top four if you are Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think one of the main things we saw with Brandon Despia specifically in this tournament is we saw it fall off going into the top 32, right? Only 4 versions of the deck made it into top 42, but it's still in top 4 right now. I think the biggest thing is if this deck can win game 1, then it has a strong edge being able to go into game 3, because what it's able to do when it's able to go first and knows it's going first, has access to its side deck as well, you're going to not lose to things as commonly as Mystic Mind because you just have to have like a answer to it in your main deck somewhere. I think as winning game 1 is the most important thing that you can do, just so you can make sure you go first game 3, and you don't have to worry about all the potential side tools that every deck has for you, because you just get to start and set up your plays.
And it's good for morale, too, winning game 1. Especially when you didn't go first, when you lost the die roll there.
Absolutely. I mean, it has to feel absolutely terrible for Andrew here. Even if he did have some sort of strategy to potentially go against the Branded Fusion, having all those points of interaction in hand, Super Polymerization was the one card that you absolutely cannot interact with, and it was the perfect answer in this situation to guarantee James wins that game 1.
Because we're signing up here. What are we putting in it for Andrew? And I don't really think any problems you have in that first game can be solved with the side deck. That was just poor luck. If I'm Andrew, I have to make sure that I'm not oversiding. I'm not trying to correct a problem that's not correct.
Right. I mean, you made it all the way to the top 4. I feel like this might not be the first time this happened to you, and you understand that there's going to be a bit of variance to it. There are 2 more games for a reason. You likely just try to stick to the game plan and put in those dimensional barriers, put in those anti-spells, just those cards that capitalize on going first, and just try to stick just some form of defense, what's necessary. He's definitely played this matchup multiple times by this point in the tournament. So I'm sure he's very aware of what he's supposed to do when he has the option to go first post side, and just has to not worry about what happened game one.
And in this case, if you're James, this feels kind of like a free shot to do something maybe a little bit risky and see if you can just catch Andrew lacking again.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the top four of a tournament and you have that game one advantage, I think that is the opportunity to do something a little bit riskier. And like that's where the pressure's on, right? You feel the need. You might have to do something a little bit different. You might do something that you wouldn't normally do simply because the pressure kind of gets to you. That could be a good thing. That could also be a very bad thing. So it depends on how risky he wants to be.
We'll see shortly. He's getting that thing good old shuffle piling out. He's going to have to shuffle another way as well.
Yeah, like one of the riskiest things he could do is if he expects Andrew to be like this again, this rock paper scissors that's very similar to what would have happened in the previous match, where maybe Andrew thinks that he's going to prepare so heavily for how Andrew's going to decide that he would actually choose second because of how game one went, and then he prepares to go first, which again, extremely risky, a huge gamble. But if it works out, he is a genius.
All right, Andrew does in fact choose to go first.
Reasonable, you know?
Very reasonable, I would say. I don't think I'd take that risk.
Looks like game two is about to be underway. Let's see if Andrew can have a much better hand this time and set up his strategy the way he's supposed to.
Well, that's much better.
Go ahead, just reveal the Vishuda, get the token on the field. Let's see if James has something along the lines of token collector. That sounds like a token collector.
That's the one.
Just a little off rate, but I recognize those level 4 monsters anywhere.
That could be an issue.
Yep. Even a long one at this point is not going to be very good. Usually, this is where emergency teleport would be the absolute best card for Andrew, but likely not in the list after Rodon has been banned. And, yep, there's the opening again.
Oh.
Starting chain. Oh. This could be a very quick match, Jerome. Even if Andrew does have a copy of Ash Blossom, having access to Patchwork means you're still able to apply pressure with something along the lines of Paritis or Masquerade, Paritis being especially useful in this match particularly, and then Token Collector's not going anywhere.
It's just going to keep coming back, even if it does go somewhere.
You know what it is a great material for is something along the lines of Guardian Chimera, if you're just feeling like drawing some cards.
All right, standard polymerization is added to the hand along with another edge imp chain.
Yep. We know there is at least one Vishuda that will be useful for Andrew trying to go after the field if he manages to survive this turn. Does he have 3 defensive cards to hold him back? Didn't have any of those powerful trap cards we mentioned earlier when you're supposed to have post side. So Andrew really struggling here. There's a Branded Fusion. Is there an Ash? There is no Ash.
No Ash. Oh, that's just brutal. That is just brutal.
This is becoming a dream come true for James right now. He is riding this wave. Oh, sending the snow as well. He's going for damage. He's just being able to push, being able to summon Albion, which will be able to attack. Yeah, he might not need to go for Mary Jade at all here. Yep, Albion will be able to banish the Edge of Chain as well as Fallen Alba, summon Lubellion, and then just push more damage here.
All right. Well, we do have a DD Crow. Albaz is out of the picture.
You know, I think that's only fair. Not seeing a Mary Jade this time, but he still has to resolve this Albion as much as possible, which he definitely can. Oh, he used one from hand. I guess we just couldn't see that because of where the current banish pile is, but there was just an Albaz in hand being used as a material, so the DD Crow did not matter. Discarding another copy of Token Collector as well.
Wow.
There is the Mary Jade. We can just get to fusing with that effective Patchwork. Getting that poly does have the chain as well in the hand, and there is a snow in the graveyard as well, getting that last bit of damage. That's going to be likely a Masquerade. Oh, no, just concedes immediately. James taking this 2-0 victory super quick and moving on into the finals with Branded Despia.
My goodness, that's a rough one. That's a really rough one. Like, sometimes it's just not your day, and that is how I would describe that match. It was just not Andrew's day there.
Yeah, like, is it more that it's not Andrew's day, or how much of it is it James's day?
Could be. It could be either. I guess it's like a glass half full, glass half empty sort of thing. But, yeah, not really a whole lot you can do about that one.
Absolutely. James is not unfamiliar with the finals before. Well, he is a previous YCS runner, or maybe even a SJC runner-up if we're going far back. Yeah, he's been around for a while. It makes sense. Morphing Dart, his favorite card. Well, so he has a chance of redemption here, and I love my redemption stories.
Absolutely. And he's got a lot of time to think about those finals as well. I believe our second match is still going on.
I would hope so. That lasted maybe 5 minutes. At this point, how much time do they have for this match? 55?
55 minutes.
Yeah.
Top 8 and top 4, and then next round will have 65 minutes for the finals.
Yeah, they could play another round of Swiss if they wanted to.
Still time to get some sign in public events. Sign up still going. All right. Well, we'll have games going on the top 4, or top 2 rather, finals. But before he does that, he'll have a chat with Sala coming up next. Don't go away.